Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening.
Please make yourself comfortable and feel free to look up and turn this way. Occasionally I do make a hand gesture or pull a face, and you don't want to miss that. It's pretty exciting. I'm just back from a week of intensive practice. We call it in the Zen tradition Sesshin, or Dai Sesshin, which means a big session, with my teacher in Seattle. For me, most often when you hear people talk about Sesshin, they talk about, oh God, what a painful experience. Sitting for hours and hours every day without moving, and horrible food, and people walking around with sticks whacking people. For me, I find the experience of Sesshin deeply restorative, very therapeutic, relaxing. Every time I think about talking about how do I express what happens for me during Sesshin, I always think of, there used to be a TV show called Star Trek, Deep Space Nine. And there was a character in it, and his name was Odo. And Odo was a shapeshifter. So if you're not a science fiction type person, I got to give some explanation. So for all you nerds like me, bear with me. So Odo was a shapeshifter. And the thing with Odo was that he could only hold a shape, a particular shape, for a certain amount of time before he needed to go back to his room, where he would kind of turn into a puddle and sort of crawl into this bucket with no shape. And in that bucket with no shape, holding no shape, he would sort of regenerate and restore and rest. So for me, Sesshin is, so the word Sesshin means Shin, it means heart, mind. You hear Shin a lot in Zen, in Buddhism. And in Sanskrit it's like Sin. So it's like the same. Heart, mind. In Buddhism, in the West we have this idea of the heart being here and the mind being here. And in Zen and in Buddhism generally, this is a dichotomy that's not really acknowledged. The heart and the mind are one. So when we talk about thought, when we talk about emotion, when we talk about images, these are all functions of Shin, the heart-mind. Ses means to gather together, to coalesce, to collect. And so I used to think about it like I would go and collect my heart-mind. And when people practice Sesshin, they would go and collect their heart-minds. But what I currently feel like when I go to Sesshin is that I am collected into the heart-mind. I spend so much of my time and so much of my energy as this individual being and holding up this self, that when I go to Sesshin, it offers me this opportunity to crawl back into the bucket, crawl back into the womb, crawl back into the origin of the whole cosmos. So I was thinking about how we go about doing this, or how we go about engaging in this practice. And one of the thoughts that came to me was, whenever I see a newborn baby, I think has anyone not ever seen a newborn baby? Okay, good. When you see a newborn baby, the first thought that pops in your mind is not, now there's an accountant, or now there's a plumber, or now there's a computer programmer, is it? No, I don't think so. I think that if you were in a room full of people and someone said something like that, say, oh, look at that lovely mechanic, people would say, what kind of a jerk are you, imposing that kind of a narrow window on such a limitless, full of possibility moment, this baby. And each one of us here at one time, believe it or not, was that baby. That looking up from the bed or the floor on which it laid, the whole cosmos of possibility expanded from. Oh, anything is possible. And as we move forward in our lives, the practice or the habit or the conditioning that we take on, we create this self. And we have to understand that coming from this position of being a baby, that every definition, every aspect, every defining characteristic that we make, while it makes us unique and defines who we are and creates this thing that we stick together out of all these preferences and dislikes and choices and aptitudes and talents and all that kind of stuff, we sort of stick it all together and we call that a self. And we have to understand that that process of doing this, while it's useful, while it helps us to relate to all the other selves that are in the world, fundamentally that activity is a limiting one. It's one that makes the universe, the cosmos, our experience smaller. And as we get older and older, our family and our society, our culture, our school, our work is constantly encouraging us to make it more precise, more defined, more clear who it is that we are. The things that we do and don't do, that we like and we don't like, that we want and we don't want, progressively make the opportunity, the potential, the capacity of this experience of the cosmos smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think for most of us, especially if we're sitting here tonight, there comes a time where we start to ask this question, which I think is a really good question, which is this all there is? We've built this really great structure to live in, this really wonderful boundary system which defines that which I take as being inside and everything else that's outside. But eventually we start to sort of feel like we got the short end of the stick, don't we? I mean, I'm this little thing in here and that's out there. And maybe that manifests as trying to get stuff. That's a common one. A lot of people make a lot of money on that. I think you'd be a better person, a better you, if you just had one of these. Felt pretty good having that one. Well, you should see this year's model. It's even... And over and over and over again. So at some point we started saying, enough. There's got to be more than what's inside this little bubble. And at first I think that's we think that it's like a original thought, or it's like some kind of glimmering of an idea. But the reality is, in my experience, that's a remembering. That's a hearkening back to this place in which the opportunity, the potential, the capacity was boundless. And the reality is, I think that this is a remembering or a longing for something that we always have, that is always with us, but we ourselves put this little can around it. Say, oh no, this. So we say, oh, maybe I should go and try this meditation practice. And so oftentimes people come here like this, and on a Tuesday night we learn how to bend our legs and sit quietly and breathe into our bellies, and our minds begin to settle. And right away, I think early on in practice, this provides a significant amount of relief. Because what it's like is like we've got this defined container we've made for ourselves. And as we begin to pay attention to what's going on in our mind, it's kind of like house cleaning. We start to go around in our container and look at all the things that are making noise and cluttering up the place and all that kind of stuff. And we start to put those things in order. We start to dispose of the things that are kind of decomposing and are better off left behind. But I think that the big mistake that a lot of people make is that this is kind of where it stops. Having created this little bit of space in their container, we kind of say, that's good. I got enough room to swing a cat, no problem. And as the sort of anxiety, the angst, starts to diminish, we start to say, yeah, meditation worked good. I'm good. And we leave practice behind. But if we continue to do this in our lives, we sort of have this boomeranging back and forth with practice. The meditation, I like to call it, where it's like things are good, don't need meditation. The things start to go sideways. I stop maintaining my space, and suddenly I start to feel squashed in again. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of practice. You come back, empty it out again. But eventually what you start to feel is like this repetitive sort of hamster wheel kind of thing, where it's like, I'm really going nowhere with this. I'm kind of back and forth, bouncing back and forth. And that's where this kind of intensive practice that I was talking about can come in very valuable. Because what our practice does, I think it's good to start, and of course we have to start with this kind of clearing up the space inside of this container that we call self. It's important. But what that allows us to do is we're kind of disposing the things that we really don't need to continue carrying. We dispose and we dispose and we dispose. We allow these things to drop away, melt away, dissolve. And we start to come down to some very core pieces, some very core components, some key memories, some key experiences. And what starts to happen is that our capacity, we come into contact with the origin. Where did this idea of self come from? Where did this particular branch originate? And as we continue to dissolve smaller and smaller self, as we continue to melt that down into the true capacity, the genuine capacity of the origin, then each time we arise as a self, Each time we feel what our true capacity is, each time we feel that intimate connection with the vastness of this cosmos, then as we arise, what starts to happen is we start to feel this character or this container or this self that we've created. It starts to pinch a little. It doesn't fit us so much anymore. Shin, we've allowed more shin. We've allowed more heart-mind to fill the space. And like a chick that's growing in an egg, suddenly this thing that we used to use to protect us from the outside starts to become a limiting factor, starts to become even a danger. We're going to get crushed by all of the things that we are and we do and we don't and we like and we don't like. Our hearts are bigger. So we have to continue this practice of dissolving into the origin, experiencing what it is to be completely unified in the vastness of this cosmos, and then bursting forth. Eventually, that self that we had, that nice, defined, clearly structured self, begins to crack. It has to grow. It has to expand. So usually what we do is we make ourselves a bigger self. We add a few wings on the building, a few more arms or something like that. We take on a few more things and we say, oh, gosh, look at all this space. But this origin, when we return in our practice to this childlike state, looking up into the depths of space, this expanding universe, where is the limit? Where is the body? Where is the self that can hold it all? So over and over we engage in this practice, creating a self, filling the self, recognizing the constraint of self, growing, expanding, filling ourselves, allowing our lives to be more and more a manifestation of the complete capacity of this cosmos until that self isn't big enough to hold us anymore either. Awakening, realization, manifestation is what we call a bodhisattva in the Zen tradition, a wisdom being, is the final realization that no body, no structure, no self is genuinely big enough to hold it. Time and time again, each time we create the new self, we think, this is the one. This is my real me. This is the big me. This is the best that I can be. And time again, we feel the squeeze. Until we begin to realize that any self that we create is just a temporary resting place. It's like a hotel. Sometimes we really like that hotel. Sometimes it's big and it's got a pool and a spa and a restaurant. And sometimes it's one of those drive-up motels where, like Tom Waits says, you take on the dreams of the people who've stayed there before. Yeah. Eventually you come to the place where each day, each time we sit, each breath, we return to this origin. And each moment, each arising, we arise anew with a totally new self, meeting the circumstances with the complete capacity that we can embody, fully embracing the circumstances without the fixation on, well, I'm this person or I'm that person, I do this and I don't like that. over and over again, finding our way back to our original home. In Zen, there's this koan. I use the baby image. How is it to be a baby looking up at the limitless sky? But in Zen, there's even goes beyond that. It says, what is your true face before your parents were born? What is your capacity, not just before you were born, not just before you took on this baby's body that seems so limitless, but before there even was a form, before the form that even begat your form took on a form. What then? So this Zen practice, we can use it as a maid. We can use it as a housekeeper to sweep out the cupboards, give ourselves a little more place to put down our coffee cup. But no matter what, if we do it this way, we're always going to find ourselves sort of oscillating back and forth, always with this sense of squeeze, the being pinched and limited by our lives. And always with this memory, always with this knowing of our own origin, our own home, our own capacity. This practice of intensive Zen practice that I'm talking about is a way where we go into this week-long form of practice, and just all day long the practice is about dissolving everything away, having the space and the time and the structure and the support to completely allow all of this stuff that you call you to drop away. And then it's interspersed with these wonderful moments where you're asked to manifest clearly. Hit it! Ha! Hit it! Ha! Dissolve. New form. New form. New form. All day long for 7 days. When we start to get into interview with a teacher in a space of 5 minutes of koan practice, this can be what your koan practice is. Dissolve, new, dissolve, new, get out. That's it. My task as a Zen teacher, my hope is for each and every one of you to leave home. When we talk about leaving home, this is what we're talking about. This nice little structure that you've built for yourself, you think is so handsome or beautiful or talented or strong or whatever. Or maybe you think it's weak and ugly and deformed. It's the same thing, isn't it? Just the house we built. I love my ugly little house, maybe. But our practice is to say, oh, nice, this is the home that we've built, and now let's allow it to dissolve and see what's next. See what's next, what can arise out of the vastness of this cosmos meeting itself.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.